Warning: this video contains mature themes, disturbing content and references to unexplained events. Viewer discretion is advised. Explore a life story of Paul du Chaillu into Africa's jungle dangers.
In the mid-19th century, the world still harbored vast unknowns. The call to explore and uncover its secrets captured the imagination of a brave few. Among them was Paul du Chaillu, a man whose adventures in Africa brought fame, discovery, and no small share of controversy. Welcome to Storyteller Pro. Today, we unravel the story of Paul du Chaillu, a naturalist and explorer whose daring journeys introduced the gorilla to European science and captivated Victorian society. His tale is one of courage, resilience, and discovery.
Storyteller Pro presents Paul du Chaillu, Explorer of the Unknown.
If you love stories of adventure and history's fearless explorers, like, share, and subscribe to support our journey into the past. The story of Paul du Chaillu begins in the early 1830s, a time when the world was vast and uncharted, with regions of Africa still a mystery to much of Europe. Though the exact details of his birth remain a subject of speculation, some claim Paris, others suggest Gabon. What is certain is that Paul spent his formative years in the vibrant and culturally rich landscapes of West Africa. Paul's father was more than just a trader. He was an amateur naturalist, a man with a deep fascination for the natural world. In the evenings, he would sit with Paul, showing him how to identify the intricate patterns on a shell or the unique structure of a leaf. These early lessons were not just about observation, but about cultivating a sense of wonder and appreciation for the complexities of nature. Gabon, with its endless forests, winding rivers, and teeming wildlife, was a natural classroom for the young Paul. He spent hours exploring its wonders, guided by both his innate curiosity and the knowledge shared by the Fang people who lived there. Paul was not just an observer of the natural world, he was also deeply immersed in the culture of the people around him. He learned to speak Fang fluently, a skill that allowed him to form close bonds with the locals and gain insights into their traditions, beliefs, and stories. These legends, which describe the forest as a living, breathing entity filled with spirits and secrets, captivated the young boy's imagination. The Fang people became an integral part of Paul's childhood. They shared their knowledge of the jungle with him, teaching him which plants could heal and which were deadly, how to track animals by the faintest signs, and how to interpret the subtle sounds of the forest. For them, the jungle was not just a place to live, but a sacred space that demanded respect and understanding. Paul's interactions with the Fang were more than just exchanges of knowledge. They were moments of connection and friendship. He admired their resourcefulness, their ability to live in harmony with the jungle, and their respect for its delicate balance. These experiences would shape his perspective as he grew older. instilling in him a lifelong belief that exploration was as much about understanding people as it was about discovering new places. At home, Paul's curiosity was nurtured further. His father encouraged him to ask questions, to study the natural world with both discipline and awe. Together, they built a collection of specimens, cataloguing each one with careful notes. For Paul, this was more than a hobby. It was the beginning of a calling. Even as a child, Paul displayed a talent for detail and a love for storytelling. His sketches were more than just scientific records. They were windows into the vibrant world he saw around him. With each drawing, he captured not just the physical form of his subjects, but the sense of wonder they inspired in him. These early years in Gabon were pivotal. They ignited a spark in Paul, a desire to explore, to understand, and to share the wonders of the world with others. Little did he know that this spark would one day lead him deep into the uncharted jungles of Africa, where he would uncover secrets that would change the way the world viewed the continent and its inhabitants.
Every journey begins with a single step. Act 2. The Call of Exploration.
As Paul entered his teenage years, to explore grew louder. His fascination with the natural world, nurtured in the vibrant landscapes of Gabon, now pushed him toward Europe, a place where knowledge and opportunity awaited. It was there, in the bustling cities of Paris and beyond, that Paul would immerse himself in the sciences, preparing for a life of discovery and adventure. Paris in the 1850s was a hub of intellectual progress and scientific curiosity. Scholars debated the mysteries of the natural world in lecture halls, explorers returned with tales of distant lands, and museums display specimens from across the globe. For Paul, it was a world brimming with possibility. Paul threw himself into his studies, absorbing the principles of zoology, botany, and geography. He listened to lectures on the wonders of the natural world, scribbling notes and sketching diagrams. Yet, even as he learned about distant places from maps and books, his heart remained tethered to Africa, the land that had ignited his passion. To Paul, Africa was more than just a subject of study, it was home. While others spoke of it in abstract terms, he saw its forests, rivers, and wildlife in vivid detail. He knew that the mysteries of the continent could not be fully understood from behind a desk. They had to be experienced firsthand. In 1855, driven by an unrelenting desire to explore, Paul proposed an ambitious plan to journey deep into Gabon's dense rainforests, document its wildlife, and bring back specimens for scientific study. It was a bold idea, one that required not just courage, but also significant funding and resources. Paul's proposal reached the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia, a leading institution dedicated to the study of the natural world. His passion and vision caught their attention, and they agreed to fund his expedition, providing him with the resources he needed to make his dream a reality. With the Academy's support, Paul began assembling the tools he would need for the journey. from scientific instruments to survival gear. Every item was carefully chosen to ensure the success of his expedition. Paul's preparation was meticulous. He knew that the jungles of Gabon held both wonders and dangers, predators that prowled unseen, rivers that swelled without warning, and illnesses that could strike without mercy. To survive, he would need to be ready for anything. For Paul, this was more than just an expedition. It was a chance to share the beauty of Africa with the world, to prove that its forests and wildlife were more than just the stuff of legends. He was driven not by fame or fortune, but by a genuine love for discovery and an unshakable belief in the value of understanding nature. As the ship set sail, Paul felt the weight of the journey ahead. The jungles of Gabon were vast, untamed, and filled with unknowns. But for Paul, the unknown was not something to fear. It was something to embrace, to explore, and to understand.
Act 3 Into the Jungle.
The jungles of Gabon were alive with life, a world teeming with sounds, scents, and sights unlike anything Paul's team had encountered. Here, every step brought a new discovery, and every shadow hinted at unseen dangers. For Paul, this untamed wilderness was both a challenge and a treasure trove waiting to be uncovered. The jungle was not just a backdrop to Paul's journey. It was a living, breathing entity, filled with mysteries that demanded to be unraveled. To Paul, every flower, every bird call, every footprint in the soil was a clue, a piece of a vast puzzle that he was determined to solve. Paul's journals became a scientific marvel. Each page was a window into the jungle's secrets, filled with sketches of plants, animals, and insects, many of which were unknown to European science. These drawings were not just scientific records. They were expressions of Paul's awe and admiration for the world around him. For Paul, documentation was an act of reverence. He approached his work with the meticulous care of an artist and the curiosity of a child, determined to bring the wonders of the jungle to light. But the jungle was not without its challenges. Rivers swelled unexpectedly, trails vanished into the dense foliage, and the air hung heavy with humidity. Every day demanded resilience, resourcefulness, and an unyielding determination to press forward. Despite the physical toll, Paul found solace in the jungle's beauty. Its sheer scale and complexity filled him with a profound sense of wonder, a reminder of nature's boundless creativity and power. In the quiet of the night, the jungle revealed a different side of itself. Around the fire, Paul listened as his guides shared stories passed down through generations. Tales of spirits that protected the forest, animals that carried the wisdom of the ancestors, and rivers that held the power to heal or curse. These stories were more than folklore. They were a reflection of the deep connection between the people and their environment. To Paul, they offered insights into a way of life that embraced the jungle not as a challenge to conquer, but as a partner in survival. Alone under the stars, Paul often found himself reflecting on the enormity of his undertaking. The jungle was vast, its mysteries seemingly infinite, and yet, in these quiet moments, he felt a profound sense of purpose, a belief that his work could bridge the gap between two worlds. Every day brought new challenges, but it also brought new discoveries. The jungle tested their resolve, demanding patience and adaptability, but it also rewarded them with moments of awe and inspiration. For Paul, these fleeting moments of beauty were a reminder of why he had undertaken such a perilous journey. The jungle was more than just a place. It was a testament to the resilience and creativity of life itself.
Act 4. Encounters with danger.
The jungle was as perilous as it was beautiful. For Paul and his team, danger lurked at every turn. From treacherous rivers to predators lying in wait, every step forward demanded vigilance and courage. As the team began to cross, the river seemed almost alive, a swirling, untamed force that threatened to claim them. Beneath the surface, crocodiles waited silently, their sharp eyes following every movement. Crossing the river was a battle of endurance and wits. Supplies had to be kept dry, footing had to be maintained, and every shadow beneath the water felt like the promise of death. For Paul, the jungle's beauty was always balanced by its unforgiving nature. The team's survival was hard-earned. Each successful crossing felt like a triumph against the jungle's relentless dangers. In the jungle, danger often struck without warning. The calm of the forest could turn into chaos in an instant, and the line between life and death was razor-thin. Out of nowhere, a leopard, a predator of unmatched stealth and strength, launched itself at the group. Its speed was terrifying, a blur of muscle and ferocity that left no time for hesitation. One of Paul's most harrowing moments came when he faced this charging leopard. With his guide's life hanging in the balance, Paul's quick reflexes saved them. But the encounter left him shaken, a stark reminder of the fragility of life in the wilderness. The leopard retreated, but its presence lingered. Its claw marks etched into the bark seemed to echo the unspoken truth of the jungle. Survival here was never guaranteed. That night, the jungle felt more menacing than ever. The encounter with the leopard had shaken them all, leaving even the most experienced guides on edge. Every sound seemed magnified, every shadow a potential threat. The guide's stories painted a picture of a jungle that was not just dangerous, but deeply intelligent. The predators here were not mindless hunters. They were calculated, patient, and always watching. Paul often reflected on the jungle's duality. It was a place of wonder and discovery, but also one of constant peril. Each encounter, each brush with death, deepened his respect for the land and its inhabitants. The jungle had a way of changing those who ventured into it. For Paul, every challenge he overcame strengthened his resolve, but it also reminded him of his own mortality. The wilderness was not a place to be conquered. It was a force to be understood and respected. Every day brought new challenges, and every moment demanded vigilance. For Paul, survival was a delicate dance, a balance of bravery, caution, and unyielding determination. Before we continue with Paul's groundbreaking discovery of the gorilla, we'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the life of a true explorer. If you're enjoying this tale of courage, discovery, and connection with nature, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller Pro. Your support helps us bring these extraordinary stories to life and keeps the spirit of exploration alive. Now, let's return to the jungle, where Paul is on the brink of a discovery that will change how the world views one of its most majestic creatures.
Act 5. The discovery of gorillas.
After weeks of relentless searching, Paul and his team found themselves deep within the heart of Gabon's jungles. Following faint tracks and distant calls, they closed in on a creature that had, until then, existed only in whispered tales: the gorilla. The search for the gorilla was a test of endurance and patience. For days, the team followed trails that seemed to vanish into the dense undergrowth. The forest was a maze of false leads, and the presence of predators made every step fraught with danger. And then there it was, a silverback gorilla, majestic and powerful, emerged from the shadows. Its deep-set eyes surveyed the clearing, its posture both protective and dominant, as it stood guard over its group. For Europeans, the gorilla had long been a creature of myth, a savage beast capable of unimaginable strength. It was said to tear trees from the ground and strike fear into the hearts of those who dared enter its domain. But what Paul observed defied these grotesque stereotypes. The gorilla was not a monster. It was a social, intelligent animal deeply connected to its family. Finding the gorillas had not been easy. The jungle seemed determined to thwart their progress. Torrential rains turned trails into rivers of mud, while venomous snakes and aggressive insects posed constant threats. Yet, despite the hardships, Paul and his team pressed on, driven by the hope of uncovering one of the jungle's greatest secrets. The journey was fraught with danger. On one occasion, as they tracked the faint signs of guerrilla activity, the teams in the heart of Gabon, where the jungle meets human settlement, Paul found more than just a place to rest. He found a community, a tapestry of people whose lives were deeply intertwined with the forest. Their knowledge, traditions, and kindness became the cornerstone of his success as an explorer. Paul's relationships with the people of Gabon were more than utilitarian. They were built on mutual respect and curiosity. While they shared their wisdom of the jungle, Paul shared his sketches and stories of the world beyond the forest. Paul marveled at the ingenuity of the Fang people. Their deep understanding of the jungle's plants, animals, and rhythms was born from generations of observation and adaptation. They showed him how to navigate treacherous terrain, avoid venomous snakes, and find nourishment in the most unlikely places. Paul was a diligent student, absorbing every lesson the Fang people offered. From tracking animals to fishing with handmade nets, their expertise transformed him from an outsider into a capable explorer. These moments of connection transcended language and culture. For Paul, the jungle's stories were not just in its wildlife, but also in the people who called it home. Their laughter, their patience, and their willingness to share left an indelible mark on him. Paul later wrote, "The jungle may belong to no man, but its stories and wisdom belong to those who call it home." His bond with the Fang people went beyond collaboration. It was rooted in genuine friendship and admiration. Nighttime in the village was a time for stories, tales of spirits that protected the forest, creatures that brought blessings or curses, and rivers that whispered secrets to those who could hear them. Paul found himself captivated by these myths, which revealed the spiritual connection between the Fang people and their environment. To the Fang people, the forest was alive with unseen forces. Spirits lived in its shadows, guarding its secrets and demanding respect from those who entered. These beliefs were not born of fear, but of reverence, a deep understanding that the jungle was both a provider and a protector. Paul's guides spoke of the jungle with the intimacy of someone describing a lifelong friend. They knew which trees bore fruit during the dry season, which vines could provide water, and which trails led to danger. For Paul, their knowledge was a gift, a window into a world he could only glimpse on his own. These exchanges were more than lessons. They were moments of camaraderie. Paul's willingness to learn and his humility in the face of their expertise earned him the trust and respect of his companions. Leaving the villages was always bittersweet for Paul. The warmth and kindness he found there stood in stark contrast to the challenges of the jungle. Yet, these moments of connection gave him the strength to continue his journey. In these exchanges, Paul discovered that exploration was not just about charting unknown lands. It was about understanding the people who lived there. Their stories, their traditions, and their wisdom brought depth and meaning to his journey. Paul's relationships with the Fang people were a testament to the power of connection. They reminded him that the jungle's greatest treasures were not just its plants and animals, but the lives and stories of those who lived within it.
Act 7. Fame and Controversy.
Paul's return to Europe marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The discoveries he brought back from Gabon, most notably his documentation of the gorilla, caused a sensation among Victorian audiences. His lectures drew massive crowds, eager to hear tales of Africa's untamed wilderness and the enigmatic creature that had once been dismissed as myth. Paul's charisma and storytelling ability made him a natural orator. He painted vivid pictures of the jungle, describing the sights, sounds, and emotions of his encounters with such clarity that his audiences felt transported to the heart of Africa. For many, he was not just an explorer, he was a bridge to a world they could only imagine. But with fame came controversy. While many celebrated Paul's achievements, others met his stories with skepticism. Scientists and skeptics alike questioned the authenticity of his claims. How could a single man, relatively unknown in the academic world, uncover such extraordinary findings in a land so little understood? The scientific community of the time struggled to reconcile Paul's dramatic accounts with their limited understanding of Africa. To them, the idea of a man encountering and documenting gorillas, a creature so elusive that it had long been considered mythical, seemed implausible. Paul faced these accusations with unwavering determination. He meticulously catalogued his findings, presenting his sketches, journals, and specimens as irrefutable evidence of his discoveries. For every question raised, he offered detailed answers, challenging his detractors to examine his work firsthand. Over time, Paul's evidence silenced many of his critics. His sketches, drawn with painstaking precision, and his specimens, collected with care, proved the authenticity of his claims. Modern researchers would later marvel at the accuracy of his observations, recognizing them as pioneering contributions to zoology and anthropology. Paul's dignity and confidence in the face of criticism won him admiration from those who took the time to listen. His ability to stand firm, to defend his work with both passion and poise, became a hallmark of his character. Paul's resilience inspired a new generation of explorers and scientists. He was not merely a man recounting his adventures, he was a pioneer who paved the way for future studies of Africa's rich biodiversity and cultures. Du Chaillu's work was remarkable for its time. His observations of gorilla behavior and social dynamics were decades ahead of their time, laying the groundwork for what we now understand as modern primatology. Today, Paul's contributions are celebrated as foundational in the study of African wildlife. His work introduced the gorilla to European science, challenging misconceptions and transforming it from a figure of fear into a creature of fascination. Though he had faced immense challenges, both in the jungle and in the lecture halls of Europe, Paul remained steadfast in his mission. For him, the true reward was not fame, but the knowledge that he had brought a piece of Africa's story to the world. Paul's life was a testament to the spirit of exploration. not just the physical act of venturing into unknown lands, but the courage to challenge assumptions, defend truth, and inspire others to look beyond the horizon.
Act 8. Final Expedition and Legacy.
In the twilight of his life, Paul du Chaillu returned to Africa one final time, not as an explorer seeking uncharted lands, but as a man yearning to reconnect with the places and people that had defined his journey. The jungle, with its untamed beauty and its whispered secrets, called to him like an old friend. This journey was different. It was not driven by discovery, but by reflection. Paul walked the trails he had once blazed, retracing the steps of a younger man whose dreams had been larger than life. Paul's heart was heavy with memories. Every sound, every shadow brought echoes of the past, of the guides who had laughed with him by the campfire, of the villagers who had shared their stories, and of the creatures whose presence had forever changed him. He paused to honor those who had walked beside him on his journeys, the guides whose knowledge and courage had been his compass. Their voices, though now silent, lingered in his mind, reminding him that no great discovery is ever made alone. These were the people who had shared their lives and their wisdom, who had trusted him to tread carefully in their world. To Paul, they were more than companions, they were family. Paul's later years were spent preserving his legacy. He poured his memories into books, carefully recounting the wonders that he had seen and the lessons he had learned. Each word was a tribute to the jungles that had shaped him and the people who had shared their world with him. His writings carried the spirit of his adventures, inspiring those who read them to dream of distant lands and untamed wilderness. To Paul, these stories were not just his, they belonged to the world. Paul's legacy lives on, not just in the pages of his books, but in the hearts of those who continue his work. His discoveries inspired generations of scientists, conservationists, and adventurers, reminding the world of the beauty and fragility of the natural world. The gorillas that once stood on the brink of myth are now symbols of resilience, their survival a reflection of humanity's capacity to protect and preserve. In 1903, Paul du Chaillu passed away, leaving behind a legacy of courage, discovery, and connection. For those who knew his work, his passing was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of a timeless call to explore, to understand, and to cherish the world around us. Paul's life reminds us that the world is vast and full of mysteries, but it is also a place of shared stories, of bonds that cross cultures and species. His journey was not just about discovering the unknown. It was about connecting with it and through it with ourselves. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Paul du Chaillu. His story is a testament to the power of curiosity and the enduring impact of those who dare to dream. If his life has inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller Pro as we continue to explore the lives of history's greatest adventurers. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Paul du Chaillu. If his story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller Pro. Together, let's continue exploring the lives of history's greatest adventurers.